Welcome into the 12 Talk podcast. My name's Josh, and with me, as always, is my podcasting partner in crime. If you're new to our channel, hi, welcome, beyond the new. Feel free to like and subscribe. We've got a fantastic show. We've got a mid-season roundtable here with two of our favourite guests. We've got Viens from Seahawks Forever, and we've got Bryce Coutts from the Hawks Eye podcast. We're going to be discussing all things from the start of the season with our opinions on how it's been, our favourite games, surprising players. We've got our mid-season player awards as well. We'll talk a little bit of trade rumour and who we'd really want the Seahawks to trade for to bolster this team. But before we do that, Mitch, how are you doing? Are you okay?
I'm doing very good. I'm just trying to share our stream to the Discord and just blacked out my entire room. No, doing really good. Life's a bit hectic at the minute, but at least our football team is consistent and providing the good vibes and keeping me sane for once.
Yes.
Am I really saying that? Am I really saying that about the Seahawks?
Yes, you are. And it's going to be great to talk about with these two as well. Again, if you are new to the channel, by all means, you can like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you can use that QR code up there. If you want to scan it with your phone, it'll take you straight to our link tree and you can find everything there. But without further ado, let's hit this intro and let's bring in the guys. Gentlemen, welcome. Where? There's at least one here. Come on. Guys, thanks so much for coming on the pod. You guys have been two of our most recent guests. We just love having you on. And this seemed like a perfect opportunity for us all to talk about where we are at the bye. And I know we were talking off air. We've all got some opinions, some thoughts about where we can go and what we can do. But before we go any further, obviously you guys are sharing this to your streams as well. But for those who may not know, do you want to introduce yourselves, Bryce?
Yeah, so I am Bryce Coutts. I run the Hawks Eye podcast. I was affiliated with another podcast prior, the Hawks Zone Rundown. I'm no longer affiliated with that program, but started my own. And played college quarterback. Now do this for fun and absolutely love talking Seahawks. Diehard Seahawks fan since the day I came out of my mother's womb.
Nice.
Damn.
Graphic.
I don't know how I follow that. My name is Dan Viens. I am a former sports reporter, journalist, play-by-play guy who started dabbling in podcasts about 7 or 8 years ago, and now I do it full time. And I can do you one better, Bryce, because I'm much older than you. And so I was there when the Seahawks came out of the womb, and I have been there from day one ever since they were born. So gotcha.
There you go. And for those who don't know us, we're the 12 Talk podcast. We are the UK Seahawkers Booster Chapter official podcast. We've been doing this for 2 years now, as we were affiliated with another podcast as well. And linking up with you guys is always a pleasure. I just can't wait to get into this. I'll be very, very honest. Thanks to everyone who's joining in. Some of these comments are amazing. This first one that I spotted here, Avengers Assemble. You hit me right in my Marvel geekdom there. Right. Well, shall we make a start? So whenever we do our game reviews, obviously we've got the stats and facts later, but we like to dip into the feelings of this. So guys, how are you feeling about the season so far? Bryce?
I am optimistic from where I was, say, in the offseason. Like in the offseason, I was kind of skeptical of where this team was going to be, all the changes and everything. I thought it was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be this good to start. And yes, we dropped that early game, which it still bugs me against the 49ers. But I look at where this team is, and I look at the fact they still haven't played a complete game. And the last time I was on with you guys doing the Texans recap, I mentioned that game left me feeling empty because we still haven't seen a complete Seahawks game. That is the thing that gives me the most optimism about this team, is we have still yet to see this team actually execute at all three facets of the game and dominate a good team, not a Saints team. Like I'm talking like a good team. And that's what gives me the most optimism going forward for this team.
Like it. Dan, where are you?
The word I would use is if I could just boil it down to one word, is hopeful. Almost went with relief. And what I mean by that is we had, as Bryce touched on, a lot of big questions in the offseason, especially in regards to this offense and what it would look like. New coordinator, new coaching staff, 6 new starters, including your quarterback. Like you can't start much more from scratch than that. And as much as I was hard on the national media for maybe not believing in the Seahawks enough this offseason, I understood where they were coming from because of those same questions. And so to sit here 7 games in and see how good this offense has been, and as much as we can nitpick a thing here or a thing there or a play here or there, like they've consistently, even week 1, which, we still have a lot of stress about, like the signs were there. And then since that week, we've just seen it build and grow each week, and it's happening before our eyes. The development of a franchise quarterback that just a couple of months ago, we weren't sure what the future was going to look like. And an offensive line that's been so maligned over the last several years, 7, 8, 9 years, take your pick, coming together and playing at a level we haven't seen here in a very long time and allowing this offense to be as functional and successful as it has been. Those were the biggest questions. And so to see that happening before our eyes and pairing it with this defense that is looking every bit as good as we thought it was going to, and without all 11 preferred starters on the field at the same time, which I think we're going to be able to see on Sunday. It's really, really exciting. And now you can kind of take a deep breath at the bye and start to dream a little bit on where this team might end up.
Yeah. Mitch, what are your thoughts?
I think we're every bit the contenders that some people thought we would be. I think that the one real stat that backs that up is the fact that we're 5-2, and the 2 games we lost were a combined loss of 7 points. It was 4 points against the Niners. It was 3 against the Bucks. So even when we're getting beat at the moment, we are right in the game. So it's a 5-2 record that could have been a 7-0 record, honestly. I think we are right. We are right up there, and we deserve to be top of the division right now. We're 5-2, joint with the Rams, but we've looked every bit as good as they've looked, and people are really going on about the Rams. So, yeah, we're contending.
Yeah, I agree with all your points. I think it's one of those where the start of the season there was such little expectation due to new OC, new quarterback. We expected the defense to be good, just the way they finished the season last year. And as much as some of us have given Harbaugh some grief, where special teams last year weren't great, they're starting to come to the fore as well and make some big plays for us. I think there's a sense of optimism, which is so weird to say as a Seahawks fan, about where this team is heading, because we're starting to see, as Bryce said, and Bryce said it in the Texans show with us, we've not had a complete game with all 3 areas playing outstanding. But it looks like it's coming. And when it does come, holy smokes, that's going to look amazing. And there's been some comments in already coming in saying, if that does happen, watch out, it could be Super Bowl bound. And me and Mitch have said we think it's a 3-year rebuild to get to that point, but they seem to have put their foot on the gas this year, and they are going for it. So with that, talk about this year. Let's have a look. Our current record versus the predictions that we all had. I know, Dan, you don't like to make preseason predictions, but you did this year, I think, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
So I just want to have a quick chat with you guys about sort of where you thought we'd be at this point. Obviously, where we are at the moment, and then where you thought we'd be.
Oh, for me, we're kind of right on track where I thought we were going to be. I didn't have us losing up to the bye week. I didn't have us losing to the 49ers, but I did have us losing to Tampa Bay and Jacksonville. So I had us at 5-2 going into the bye. I still have us as a 13-4 football team. And the more that I have watched them play up into this bye, the more I believe 12 or 13 wins is a real possibility. Now, Dan will throw me under the bus and claim that I'm the reason he changed his prediction, but he said it on multiple shows. I will stand firm. I am still sitting on 13-4 Island because looking over the back half of this schedule, you look at teams that we expected to be good this year, like the Vikings. The Vikings are falling apart. Carson Wentz is done for the year now, and they have to throw JJ back in there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But the Rams game is going to be their next big test, because it sounds like even from Adam Schefter today that Jaden Daniels may not even play on Sunday night, and it may be Mariota. So there's a bunch of teams that I think we all kind of circled on that back half after the bye going, this is a key game. This is a key game they have to win. Those games are looking different. That Rams game is going to be the first test for this team in the second half, I think, where we got to look at it and be like, okay, if they win that game, then to the point of, I said 13-4 and boldly 2 playoff wins, that makes things a lot different for that Seattle Seahawks team. So I'm sticking with my prediction that I had.
Nice. Dan.
Well, Bryce is right. So, wow, man. Okay. I sorry. I just came up with I'm a big sucker for wordplay, and I just came up with the title of a show someday when Bryce is on my show. How have I never thought of that before?
The Price is Right.
I don't know. I don't know. Okay. This is creativity happening right in front of your eyes, folks. So yeah, when the schedule first came out, I went 11-6, and I was trying at that time to be as conservative as possible, even though I was really optimistic about all the changes they made. But I understood that those changes might take some time to sort of come to fruition, right? And then I did get overly excited after the start they got off to, and Bryce recruited me over to his side. And for a minute, I was on 13-4 Island with him and with John McGrath. Shout out to John. But as luck would have it and timing would have it, I'm actually, when I'm done here later tonight, I'm going to go live on my own channel and update my prediction. And when I did that, obviously adjusting the season, I go back and show, what I picked initially, and they're ahead of the pace. I didn't have them going 5-2. I thought the offense would take a little bit more time to kind of come together. But as I went through now, and knowing what we know about all the teams left on the schedule, as Bryce pointed out, I came up with 13-4 as well, but I may or may not stick with that. I don't want to give away the show tonight, just because the reality of the league and how damn hard it is to win 13 games in this league. And then at some point, something's going to happen that you're not expecting. Maybe you're going to trip up against a team that you thought you should beat, but maybe you get one against a team that the matchup didn't look that favorable too. What was really hard looking ahead to the second half was trying to pick those Rams games. And what I ultimately came up with is this. I don't know which combination is going to happen, which one goes which way. I think at the end of the day, they split those 2 games somehow, some way. The Rams are really good. And it would be easy to just say, well, they're going to win the one in LA and we'll win the one at home. I'm not so sure about that, because I think that game's going to be kind of like the Seahawks Super Bowl. Like, talked about it with Griffin Sturgeon on the show the other day, that has been our Achilles heel through Pete Carroll and Mike McDonald's tenure here, is we just cannot beat that aspect. Bryce and I have talked about this recently. In fact, on Ask Coach Bryce, we haven't been able to compete with that aspect of their offense that's so dangerous. And that is Matt Stafford living in the middle of the field and hitting those intermediate to deep middle of the field routes that they've just carved us up with game after game after game. And that the defense now finally, personnel and scheme-wise, especially with the emergence of Nick Emenwari in the middle there, may finally be built in such a way to be able to hinder some of that, take some of that away from the Rams. They're just really good, and this league is really evenly matched, and every week's going to be a dogfight, except, I don't know, maybe week 17 in Tennessee. And so I'm going to go with 12-5 as a realistic finishing point.
I'm writing these down. Mitch.
I said 11-6 quite a few times, I think, on the pod at the beginning of the year. And I still think we've almost overshot that slightly. I mean, from 5-2, if you split the remaining 10 games down the middle, 5 games, 5 wins, 5 losses, then we're 10-7. And I really don't think we're going to be doing that. So I think 11-6 now becomes a little bit pessimistic from the start we've had. I think we go at least 12. I think we go at least 12-5 from here on out, and it could be an awful lot better than that. It's so exciting to think, but we've set up a fantastic foundation for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both came to the 11-6, didn't we, on our prediction show? And we were hovering at that 12-5, and I just couldn't bring myself to it because I saw the latter half of the season where the bye situated so well for us. But you see all these other teams that are going down with injuries. We've been pretty lucky to not have a raft of injuries, a la the 49ers, whose whole team seems to be in the medical tent, the physio room every single day. I'd hate to know what their medical bill is, by the way. But I mean, there's nothing saying that the rest of the season something couldn't happen. And if that was to happen, I see it being a bit bumpy depending on who goes. I mean, there's one player that I want to talk about later as well that I think could have a massive impact if he was to go down injured. But I, being the pessimistic Englishman, I'm going to stick with 11-6 because I've played sport and coached sport long enough to know that as optimistic as you can be, then something can always happen. Plus, if we're 11-6, if I say 11-6, and then we end up going 12-5, 13-4, I'm going to be ecstatic. So there you go. See, low goals and then high optimism. So yeah.
So this question's just come in. I think it's a great one to just fire out to our guests. So, would 13-4 be enough for the first seed? And if it's not, I guess, who do you think will go better than 13-4 and make that not the first seed? Bryce?
I think it could be enough. I think the couple teams you're going to be chasing, the Eagles will be one. I think the Eagles' schedule for them and the way that they play football bodes well as the weather gets worse. They run the ball. They won their last game over the Giants here without A.J. Brown in the lineup. And I think Tampa Bay is a real team to be concerned about. Like, Tampa Bay gets healthier. Yes, they've lost Mike Evans, but Godwin eventually comes back. McMillan comes back. They get healthy. They already had the tiebreaker if it came down to that. If you both finish with the same record, they're the higher seed because they did beat you. Those are the two teams that, like, if I'm today saying who could hold Seattle out of that first place with having a similar record or better, it's one of those two teams for me.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, just before this question came in, I was just looking at the schedules of the other teams that we're kind of competing with, and the Bucs might have the easiest way ahead of them. They play it'd be a really interesting game, interconference game this week against the Patriots, but they go the next 3 weeks. They go Patriots, Bills, Rams. That's a pretty tough 3-game set. But then it goes Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers. That's how they finish the season. So if they get through these next 3, 2, and 3, I think they're in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed, even more so than the Eagles, who still play in the next 2 weeks. They go Packers, Lions, and then but then they've got kind of an easy stretch, and then they play the Bills in week 17. And then for the Rams, like, we're going to know a lot more about the Rams 3 weeks from now. 4 weeks from now, really. They have an easy one coming out of the bye. They got the Saints this week at home. But then they play, and this bodes well for the Seahawks as well. They play at the 49ers the week before our matchup with them in LA. And that's going to be a revenge game for them. Obviously, it's going to be a very emotional, very intense game for them because of what happened the first time around. And then later in the schedule, before they play the Seahawks on Thursday night, they play the Lions the Sunday before, one of the most physical teams in the league. So I think their road might be a little tougher. I think the Buccaneers kind of have the best pathway to the number 1 seed. And unfortunately, that means tiebreaker. So I would say I'm not a betting guy, but if I were to bet, I think the number 1 seed is going to be tough for the Seahawks because of some of the unfortunate tiebreakers that are already working against us.
I've got to say, if there's another NFC team that would get number 1 seed, I'd be happy if it was the Bucs. I am a Baker stan, and I think he has been phenomenal for them.
Well, and if you have to go on the road to play a playoff game, I mean, Florida in January is not bad. It beats some of the alternatives.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
So yeah, we've discussed sort of where we thought we were going to be as compared to where we are. But out of the games we've played, one thing I want to know was, what did you see as a surprise game or result so far? Like, what game did you expect us to win? We might have lost. What showed you the most? What had the most highlight-worthy plays? Bryce, from a coaching point of view, I'm expecting you to be pulling apart the X's and O's of a certain game and sort of tell us why you liked it. So let's go straight for you, Bryce.
So the game for me that I actually liked the most was the Tampa Bay game and the Seahawks versus Bucks. And the reason for that was I really thought that was one of the few games this year where our offense, even though our run game wasn't great, it allowed Sam Darnold to operate at such a high level in that game. We're talking about a quarterback that completed 80% of his passes, 4 touchdowns. The tight ends were involved. AJ Barner was involved greatly in that game. JSN went off in that game. We saw his, kind of abilities really on a more national level than I think some people maybe thought at that point in the season. The game for me that drove me nuts, though, was the Texans game. That game, as an offensive coach, I was ready to put my head through a wall and question.
We know we had you on the pod straight after.
I know. Everything I knew about coaching and football at that point, I was about to go, okay, cool. All the years I've ever done just doesn't mean anything. Just do trick plays whenever it feels right in your heart, and you're just going to do it. But that game, and I think the best thing about that game happening when it did is it kind of, I think, for this bye week and this self-evaluation week, is much better to have that happen going right into it and have it fresh at the front of your mind than having that in week 2 or having it after your bye week. Because what it does for me as a coach is it tells me, okay, we may have gotten away with a bunch of stuff early on in the year, and it is finally now caught up to us, and the chickens have kind of come home to roost. And I think that is exactly what happened for Clint Kubiak with his trick plays. Is it was like, you didn't really see one in the Jacksonville game, and then all of a sudden he tried it again, and it completely backfired. And I've had some people say, well, if he completed the pass, it would have been a genius call. And no, because the guy that caught the pick was 2 steps from JSN and would have tackled him for a gain of maybe 10 yards. That is not a fantastic trick play that goes, ooh, look what I did. This was brilliant. So for your question, Josh, those are the games for me that stand out the most.
I could have predicted you were going to say something about the Texans game. You were fiery on our last pod. Right, Dan.
You know what's funny about this, and we didn't compare answers ahead of time, but I'm the exact opposite of Bryce. Like, my most disappointing game is the Tampa Bay game, because I just never, even with some of the injuries we were facing that day, just never anticipated a complete and total no-show from our defense. Didn't think we were going to see a game like that this year, where we give up 35 and we can't even force a punt, and the other team just kind of runs up and down the field against us. And especially on a day when our offense is clicking on all cylinders. So that was a real bummer. You know, the silver lining there is the reaction to it. You know, Coach McDonald coming out afterwards, putting it on himself, saying, hey, that was all on me. Didn't have a good enough plan. Didn't make good enough calls. Since then, he has absolutely been in his bag, to the point that Leonard Williams has accused him of being a little bit of a soothsayer, you know, talking about how they come off the sideline sometimes and congratulate him, because it's like he knows what the offense is going to do now ever since that. So that's my biggest disappointment. And then maybe the most encouraging game to me, and this is just how my brain's wired, is the Texans game, because this was a team that was leading the league in points allowed at 12 a game. Everyone was talking about how they might be the best defense in the league. They were coming off a bye with a chance to figure out a way to stop us. And even though we played like crap, turned the ball over 4 times, the play calling, as Bryce mentioned, was probably, I said it after the game, I think it was my least favorite game of Kubiak's so far. And yet, and with them having 2 weeks and one of the best cover corners in the league to figure out a way to stop JSN, and they couldn't. And we were still able to move the ball And if it wasn't for our own self-inflicted wounds, would have blown that team out, given all the advantages they had coming into the game. I thought that told me quite a bit about who this team is and where they are.
Like it. Go on, Mitch.
I'm going to open up old wounds here and talk about the 49ers game that we opened up with. I think
so long ago.
I agree with you, Dan. And the thing is, we're looking back at that game now. If you watch the way we played in that game and you watch the way we played since that game, it doesn't look like this year's Seahawks team at all. That game surprises me looking back at it because it seems like it belongs in a different era of Seahawks football. We look a far better side since that game, and I kind of wish we'd turned up with a little bit of what we've got right now in that game, because we lost by such a small margin in such an important game. And you touched on it as well, Dan, that the playoff implications of losing 2 games so far and them both being divisional games or conference games. I wish we'd given that one a little bit more of the juice that we've had since that game. So yeah, it surprises me that we played so badly considering what we've seen since.
Yeah. It's always a tough way to start the season, anyway, wasn't it? I went for one that's not been mentioned, the Steelers game, because watching the game, there were some frustrating points, but there was some things like sort of DK Mark II, his coming out party with that interception in the end zone. You look at so Darnold was 22 for 33, 295 yards. You actually had an effective game from Ken Walker, which is something that I have mentioned a lot on our pod, that he's not been effective this year, but he rushed for 105 yards. And then when you look at the fact we spread the ball around to 6 different receivers, including Walker, it's where you could really start seeing how the offense was going to play. And then you had 3 sacks, 8 QB hits, and the 2 interceptions. I had this down as, in our preseason predictions, I'm pretty sure I had this down as a loss, because the Steelers always come to play. Obviously, we all got burnt by the Super Bowl appearance, but that was less the Steelers, more the refs. But I think this really showed the mettle of the team. This showed what we were capable of when we had the ball in our hands, when we just let Darnold run the show, and defensively as well. I think things really started clicking. The fact that we got 3 sacks and 2 interceptions in one game, mind blowing, especially when you look at the fact our starting corner had literally walked into the building that week, and he comes and does that. So that was one for me that it really, that lit a little bit of a fire under me, if I'm honest, when I sort of started looking at how we were going to play for the rest of the season. But I don't know if anyone else felt the same, because I don't think it's one that a lot of people talk about. The second game of the season after a loss, straight back in, and we're there. So that's all the resulty bit. Now I like the emotional side, gents. I like you to tell us your thoughts. You can back it up with stats. I don't mind. I don't think anyone else would mind. But it's time for the mid-season awards on offense, defense, and special teams. Now, I think what we'll do, we'll go round on offense first, then we'll do defense and special teams. Come on, Bryce. Who have you got?
Low-hanging fruit.
Sam Darnold for me.
Oh.
And the reason I say Sam Darnold for me, because if Drew Lock's playing quarterback, or Jalen Milroe had been thrust in, I don't even know, even if Geno had still been here, I don't know if you see the production you see from JSN that you see right now. Like, JSN's doing a fantastic job getting open, and that's amazing, but you got to have a guy that can get him the ball and get it to him on time in those windows and trust that he's going to go make the plays that he has been making. Sam Darnold is my MVP on offense, because let's be honest, we're actually having a serious conversation now in the Seahawks content creator community and so on about, well, is Jalen Milroe even going to be a quarterback that starts for the Seattle Seahawks at some point? Because there's conversations of Sam Darnold, when is he going to get a potential contract extension if he keeps playing the way he's playing? Like, do we have our franchise quarterback? And you think about where we were in the offseason having this discussion of, okay, Sam's probably just going to be a placeholder. Like maybe he might be good for his 3 years. Like people were already, the minute Jalen Milroe got drafted, we're talking about, well, you can get out of Sam's deal in a year. Like that was the conversation that was going around. And now you're having the opposite conversation. We're talking about a guy that is like almost top 5 in every statistical category as a passer in the NFL. And people saying he wasn't going to be able to replicate what he did in Minnesota. He is playing better football than he did in Minnesota, like efficiency wise. So when I look at what JSN's doing, it takes 2 to tango. You need a trigger man that can make those throws and get the ball to you and keep the offense on the field and not turn it over to give JSN those opportunities. So that's why I'm picking Sam Darnold as Seahawks MVP for the offense.
Nice.
See, if I would have known that I was going to follow Bryce, knowing that he's the quarterback guy, that he would go Darnold. But you know what? It doesn't matter anyway because I have JSN. Like I get everything he just said. I just think that the fact that he's embraced a change in his role. And that every single week, every defensive coordinator is geared towards figuring out a way to stop him. And even with some of the best cornerbacks that are out there that the league has to offer, and yet they haven't been able to, I think speaks to him. We just came off our bye week. He still leads the NFL by about 100 yards in total receiving yards. And, Sam's been phenomenal. And just to piggyback on what Bryce was talking about, he's top 5, 6, 7 in every single individual category that you can even think of. And yet he's 25th in the league in attempts. Like that's how good Sam has been. But JSN is just on another level. And I think, this offseason, when all those lists come out during list season, right? Top 10, top 10 receivers in the league, top 5 receivers under 25, whatever. He wasn't on any of those lists. And we all kind of felt like it was a slight, but I think most of us also felt like, okay, we kind of get it, right? Because there's a lot of great receivers out there and he hasn't really had that one big year. Well, now he is. And I don't think there's any question moving into next offseason where we're going to be talking about this guy when it comes to the other receivers in the league. He's been that good.
Agreed on both fronts. This is going to be a difficult one because we didn't actually... Usually we talk before a pod and I'll be like, right, give me your answers so we don't repeat. So I'm intrigued to see now. Mitch, your boy has got to be up here.
Like a true professional, I've tiered 4 answers for each of these. So whoever gets taken and goes off the board, I've got another answer.
I bet I know which way you go. I bet I know which way you're going to.
I got a feeling too.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to.
Are we not going to be able to shout your boy?
We are if you do it. But I'm going Oots. I'm going to go Oots because, and I'm just going to say Oots.
2 games.
Yeah, but they were our running game's best games. There is nothing like following Oots through a hole. He is just an absolute. He is the catalyst in this offense when it comes to meshing everything together. The best things happen when Oots is out there forcing the holes and getting up to the next level and just causing mayhem. We have not been the same since Oots, and I've not enjoyed a game as much when Oots isn't playing. So for me, in the absence of being able to pick JSN or Darnold, I'm going to go Oots. Even if it's just because he's been the biggest surprise impact or surprise package.
And you know I love that pick. We love some Oots on
here. You're going to go Zabel. Now.
So many candidates.
I've got you down, don't worry. But I generally thought, so those who are new to our pod, Mitch likes to make predictions. He's our draft guru, and he's been right on at least 1 pick. No, 3 picks now. Has it been Mitch 3 picks? Yeah. And you shouted out AJ Barner, so he's now called Mitch's boy AJ Barner on our pod, and I thought that's who you're going to go for.
That's who you were talking about. Okay.
But no, I am going to shout out Gray Zabel, because I think Gray Zabel has had a transformative effect on this O-line. When you look at how much bad press from national media, from the fan base, our O-line has had for the last decade, you draft a guy in the first round and instantly he's come in and this whole line has looked better. You look at how well he plays next to Cross. You look at the majority of the big running plays are off to the left. And that's because they're going behind Cross and Zabel at such a frequency. I mean, he's not allowed a sack this season, and he's a rookie. Like, that's mind-blowing. When you think about some of the sort of interior D tackles he goes against, and he's not allowed a single sack. I can't fathom the transformative nature of that draft pick, and I think it's going to be one it'll carry on going forward. I hope John has now realized that you can draft interior D linemen high. You might be able to trade for them as well, and we may see some more coming. But with that, I think we've got some other things to talk about afterwards. So there we go. Darnold, JSN, Boots, and Gray Zabel. Now, let's mix it up for the defense, because I feel obviously Dan had to follow you, Bryce. So Dan, for the defense, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Bryce.
Okay,
Fair.
I'm glad you wanted me first, because again, I think I know the direction a lot of you would go if in a vacuum, if given the choice. But I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go Byron Murphy. I think the second year leap that we're seeing from him is kind of everything we were maybe unrealistically hoping for last year as a rookie. And I think the injury played a big role in what was happening with him last year. Plus, McDonald has admitted that basically had to play a lot of base last year and kind of keep things vanilla a little bit, which just allowed teams to sort of focus a little bit more. We were seeing more double teams last year for Murphy. And then we spent the offseason, all of us, me out in front of the pack, just kind of pounding the table for let's get a true nose guard in there that can take some of that pressure off Murphy, let him play more 3 technique. He's playing about as many snaps as a true nose tackle position as he did last year, but none of us seem to be worried about it just because of the way that scheme is being executed and the way they're moving those guys around and they're all working together. So I don't worry about the toll being taken on it. I don't worry about it impacting our run defense because it's been stellar. Just like Ernest Jones said a month ago, he said, good luck. If you think you can run the football on us, good luck. And now we're starting to see that pass rush juice out of Byron Murphy. And people are starting to take notice of the drop knee technique that was so cool on his college tape and actually translates to the NFL. I think for anyone that might have been concerned last year that it wasn't as good as we hoped in his first year, I think now they understand this is a special player who has an opportunity to play at a all-pro level at some point in his career. And we're seeing that ascension and just how great of a young player he is. And young is the key word there. I think he's still only just 22 years old.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? Bryce, who have you got for us, dude?
Well, I think everyone would expect me to go with Big Cat or Ernest Jones, but I'm not. My MVP for defense is DeMarcus Lawrence. And the reason I say it's DeMarcus Lawrence is we saw the impact without him in the lineup. A prime example being that Tampa Bay
saved the season in a way. Yeah,
100%. And we saw the immediate impact of getting him back in Jacksonville. And that for me is when you look at an MVP, you look at someone that if you take them out, what is the direct effect or correlation to said unit or team? We took DeMarcus Lawrence. Our run defense wasn't as sharp, especially on the edges. And as much as he may not have been getting sacks, the pass rush he gave to that unit with Derek Hall, with Boye Mafe, you could see DeMarcus Lawrence still had a lot left in that tank to give. And so for me, now that you see his impact in this Jacksonville game, in this Houston Texans game, even in the other games that he had played prior, then to not have him and the drastic effect it had on that defense that particular Sunday, I think DeMarcus Lawrence is definitely the MVP of the defense for me right now at the midseason point.
I like it. Mitch.
Oh, well, the top 2 candidates on my board. Oh no, I've still got Leonard Williams there. I think Leonard Williams is still the leader. Well, he's one of 3 huge leaders on this defense, right? We've not seen Love in the backfield as much. He's not been there, and he was such a big leader for this team. Leonard Williams always was, but didn't need to do as much because Jay Love just seemed to put that team on his back. He's been a brilliant leader. He's been incredibly consistent. He's still eating up double teams and causing havoc, and everyone is feeding because of him. Even when he doesn't feed, everyone else does. His levels of effort and consistency are, for me, unmirrored in the league. He doesn't get the plaudits he deserves, truly. And he's there doing it. And yeah, I just love Leonard Williams.
Yeah, I think Big Cat again is one of those transformative players, and he's been just outstanding since we got him. Like I said in our pod about the Texans, though, no one's going to talk about him for a Defensive Player of the Year because he's up in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, and unfortunately, that's one of those where people only look at, oh, he's got 18 sacks this year, which is ridiculous. I'm going to talk about a player who has already been mentioned in the chat, who I spoke about, a transformative player on offense. Michael, it's like you've watched this show before. I'm pretty sure Josh won't go Reek. I might surprise you, you know. But no, I'm not going Reek. I'm going to go with what could be classed as low-hanging fruit here, but Ernest Jones. Right, we talk about the transformative effect of Gray Zabel on the O-line. The transformative effect that Ernest Jones had on our defense last year when he came in can't be understated. And he's carried it on this year. 3 interceptions already this year. From middle linebacker, he's everywhere. He commands this defense. And a defense with so many leaders as well. When you look across the board from Julian Love at safety, from Witherspoon, from Lawrence, Big Cat, Jay Reed, he leads this defense. I think he is, someone put it in there, he's the straw that stirs the drink for me in the middle of this field. And I think Dan said earlier about having Emanwari in that backfield as well, which is going to help cover the middle. I think Jones is doing that as well. And it's something that has been so understated about his game. And you look at whenever you put people next to him, last year it was Tyrese Knight. This year, Drake Thomas is balling out. Just the confidence that they play with next to someone like Ernest Jones. He may not be a week-to-week captain, but he is 100% a captain of this team. And I am so glad that we got him. And he wants to be in Seattle for the rest of his career, which is music to my ears.
I mean, Daniel Jeremiah's latest thing is every week that he goes on local radio here for his weekly segment with 710 Seattle Sports, he says right now Leonard Williams is Defensive Player of the Year in the league. Period.
He should be.
Yeah.
He should be, but then when it comes to the vote for it, will he get them?
Yeah.
And that's always the issue. We have this. There's the long running story of Russ was never MVP candidate. When you look at some of the seasons he had, is that because of where the Seahawks are based? Who knows? I do think it'd be a massive slap in the face, or it could just be something else to stoke the fires for Big Cat if he doesn't get it after the season he's having.
Yeah, hopefully some of the national voices will kind of give him some momentum. Brian Baldinger's another guy that's been really outspoken about the fact that nobody's playing defensive tackle better than that guy right now in the league.
Yeah, Baldy's breakdowns of him are fantastic as well.
I think Wilson was never going to win an MVP as long as he was making Subway adverts. Just putting that out there. Nobody's making that vote. No one's turning in that card after seeing that advert. I'm sorry.
Unlimited,
yeah. It's that's what did it. It was the Mr. Unlimited. That's absolutely awful. Right, special teams, special players, special plays. Bryce, I'll let you go first on this one.
Okay, so for me, it's Chaz Surratt.
Nice pick.
He, to me, has been probably one of the more impactful special teams additions we've had in the first couple seasons, I'd say, or like probably the last 4 or 5 seasons, I'd say, for our special teams unit. And the reason I say that is he's on almost every unit. He's in and around the ball. It's usually him or Brady Russell that ends up with the tackle. He made the key springing block for Horton on the big punt return that we saw in the Saints game where he completely annihilated the last man, which was the kicker. So for me, it's Chaz Surratt. obviously you could say Myers or Dixon, but I think Dixon has been underwhelming this year, and Myers again has missed some field goals he should have made. So when I'm looking at special teams, I'm looking at guys that prevent things from happening, and Chaz Surratt's probably been there with Brady Russell for me.
I like that. Dan?
I'm going to take some liberty with the parameters here. My most outstanding person on special teams is Jay Harbaugh. Everybody wanted this guy fired in the preseason because of a couple of bad punt returns in the preseason. Like these units as a whole have been outstanding. Is anyone playing better at special teams than the Seahawks? Like overall, right? They've blocked kicks. They have a punt return for a touchdown. They have figured out a way to scheme kickoff returns to the point that they are a consistent part of the offense and the field position that they're handing them. I just think they've been outstanding as a whole, and I think he needs some credit. So I'm here for it.
Love that. Well,
Mitch.
Bryce said special teams is about preventing things from happening, right? He made that comment just now. Well, do you know who's preventing something truly awful from happening? Torrey Horton returning punts, because that means we haven't got D. Williams on the roster. That, for me, is the sole biggest upgrade on last year, is the fact we are not hiding behind the sofa every time we're returning a punt. There was a period last year where, honestly, I felt we were most vulnerable catching a ball and running it back. That was the biggest glaring hole on our roster. That is not a factor anymore. And we have Torrey Horton to thank for that. And also, I think he held a record beginning of the year, wasn't it, when he'd scored 3 touchdowns as a rookie on... I can't remember exactly what the stat was, but he broke 2 records in one game when he returned that 96 yards?
96 yarder.
And then he also broke a record for scoring a special teams and a receiving touchdown in a single game as a rookie. I think that was a record as well. It was something like that. Either way, he's made an impact on special teams. That means we don't have a horrible punt returner out there. So happy days.
It's amazing how legendary some players can be for what they didn't do or did in such a short period of time. D. Williams right up there with Drew Nowak as being just legendary.
This was a difficult one for me because I wanted to look at the defensive side of our special teams. But the more and more I looked at it, the more, obviously, Mitch mentioned about Torrey Horton. I'm going George Halani. I think having Horton and Halani being back there to receive kicks has been so steadying for us. Where previously, like we've mentioned, D. Williams, there's been sort of Derek Young gets chucked in there, and Derek Young's been good on returns as well. But I think Halani just brings that consistency. He's going to try and hit a hole, but if he can't find the hole, his head is going down. He's just going to try and gain some extra yards on every single return, and he's got a legitimately safe pair of hands there. I've loved having him actually on the active roster as opposed to floating on that practice squad. I think he's just been brilliant, and if he's our RB3. Now Kenny Max out, I'm more than happy with that as well. So yeah, there we go. That's the mid-season awards. Now the next part is hyperbole. This is what we've all heard on the grapevine, and this I think is where you're going to get people in the comments people have already commented who they want or who they think we should get. Let's talk some trade. Rumors, targets. Now, we spoke offline before we came on live as to who you think we should go for, who is a definite consideration for us. Let's have an open conversation. Now, Bryce, you said that you've received some feedback from someone about a certain player. Let's talk about that.
Okay, we'll talk about that. So yes, I have heard that Seattle could be interested in acquiring Jackson Powers Johnson from the Raiders because he is a guy that is very disgruntled in Vegas. They don't have a way forward with him with the current staff, and he wants out. The Raiders want to kind of move on and I think reset in some aspects. Again, he wasn't drafted by this regime. So I think there's a fair opportunity. And from what I've heard, that is a opportunity Seattle could be very interested in pursuing at the right cost.
And I think it would be a fantastic pickup.
I think would. I think it solves your center's problem for years, not like right now.
What happens to the right guard then?
I don't know if there is an answer to the right guard on this roster right now. As it currently constructs, I think you're kind of, if you move Sundell over, I don't know if Sundell's better off in that spot than he is at center, because some of the issues I've seen with Sundell, and I'm a big Sundell advocate, me and Dan both are things that I think are just limitations for him in general. I don't know if they get better with him moving to guard. It may help Anthony Bradford out a bit, but again, I don't think Anthony Bradford is the right answer at right guard. I think your right guard option will either be a potential free agent or a draft pick next year.
I agree. And I think this line is playing so well overall, right? Especially in pass protection. You don't want to mess that up too much. And so if you have an opportunity to get a clear upgrade like JPJ, a guy who was incredibly high on coming through the draft process, and it should say something about how much I like that player's game, that I do think he would be an immediate upgrade over Jalen Sundell, a guy that I like. But when we start talking about maybe swapping out both those positions, I think then you're really running the risk of messing with some of that continuity. I think what you bank on is when this line tends to run into trouble, and Bryce and I have talked quite a bit about this in our breakdowns, it's because the sum of the parts in there, right? Like Bradford has his weaknesses, but we're able to kind of work around some of those. Sundell has his weaknesses. We're able to work around some of those in a vacuum, but the two of them together sometimes causes issues. If you were to put Jackson Powers Johnson in there at center, his most natural position where he's the most comfortable, he's much more physical with a much stronger anchor than Sundell. That's where he gets into trouble. He's athletic enough though to get to the second level, a little bit more like Oluwatimi in that respect than Sundell, but he can do it. But because he's so much stronger and more physical, I think he's a better complement to what Bradford already gives you at the right guard spot, and that you can get through this year with that, and then you evaluate it again. I think if you genuinely have an opportunity to get this guy, and I can't believe, and I say this to people all the time that throw trade ideas at me of just how to go improve the offensive line, teams don't trade good young offensive linemen. Well, this is a case where they would be willing to, it sounds like. I think they're crazy. I think it would be a mistake from the Raiders standpoint, but if it's really a possibility, the Seahawks would be nuts not to go after it. He's got 2 years left on his contract, and he would upgrade a position there and upgrade 2 positions, because then Sundell becomes a guy that can literally back up all 5 spots on your line in a really, really valuable depth piece.
Yeah, I completely agree. Dan, I think you were on one of our pre-draft pods, and we were talking about sort of the center options, and JPJ was one of your draft darlings there, same as Mitch as well. Mitch pointed him out, and I wouldn't be mad at it. I think when you have someone like Sundell was obviously thrust into the limelight at center because of Olu's injury, and let's not forget, we're talking about all the trades. We've not actually seen Olu consistently with this O-line in a competitive game. For an award-winning center in college, I refuse to believe that you come into the NFL and you are completely ineffective. We've got an award-winning cornerback who, when we drafted him, I said outright, he will not be a cornerback in this league. So we've taken the talents he has and moved him to safety, and I think Kobe's been fantastic there. I think Olu deserves a crack here. I do think, like you said, upgrading at center is never going to be a bad decision. I think the right guard spot, but someone's put in the comments there that right guard play, I think it's, here we go, Kevin, right guard play is bad league wide this season, to be honest. And someone else has asked about Teller, but I think what Bryce said, and anyone who's coached your units within a team, it's all well and good moving 1 or 2 players, or 1 player preferably, but if you blow up what is essentially 40% of that O-line, then the cohesion's not there. These guys have been training all off season. They train together. They've been together in the facility. I'd love to see JPJ, but I don't want to see more than just him. Are there any other trade targets you guys would be looking for? Mitch, anyone you'd want to go for?
Yeah, I'd be looking at underperforming AFC teams with a surplus of defensive backs, i.e. outside corners. I'm looking at Baltimore with Marlon Humphrey, still at an age where you could give him a 2 to 3 year deal, and expect some fairly stellar perimeter play. Looking at Kansas City Chiefs, who have got a surplus of outside corners. L'Jarius Sneed is an obvious cut if they're going to start restructuring their cap. And there's also Jalen Watson there in Kansas City as well. Now, those are not rumors by any means. They are me just throwing out some names and to focus our chat towards corner instead of the offensive line. But I do think that those are 3 targets that would add some serious veteran savvy and move the dial a little bit on the level of quality that we've got on the perimeter.
Agreed. Are there any other positions that sort of? I know everyone speaks about middle linebacker ad nauseum. I've flipped my thinking on middle linebacker just due to the coaching of Mike McDonald and this coaching setup. So you look at what he's done with Tyrese Knight in his first year. I already spoke about Ernest Jones. You look at how Drake Thomas has been playing as well. I think at the moment, it's sort of a 55 or 60-40 split between Thomas and Knight. It may even be more in favor of Thomas after the last game. But I think with what we have, I wouldn't want to waste draft capital. I wouldn't want to waste any of our cap bringing someone in for the sake of it, unless they're a truly transformative player like a Roquan Smith. But that'd never happen.
I'm glad you brought up inside linebacker. I just did a show earlier this week singing the praises of Drake Thomas and talking about how 2 years after the fact, I was right, that as excited as I was the day we claimed him 2 years ago, thought he was a future starter, and I was excited to see the development. But that being said, you don't get an opportunity very often to get a guy like Logan Wilson, who's in the physical prime of his career, with a very reasonable contract, wouldn't break the bank, a guy that is considered one of the best coverage weak side linebackers in the league, but can also still come up and thump in the running game. It sounds like the Bengals are willing to move him, which is something the Bengals usually are kind of stubborn and stingy when it comes to that. I don't think it would cost you very much. The day 3 pick swaps are kind of all in vogue now. We just saw Roger McCready get moved for one of those. I think you could do something like that. If you have a chance to get Logan Wilson and add him to this group and have Drake Thomas now be your depth, I would do that in a heartbeat. And one other note on JPJ, I think any deal involved there, if you want to craft a deal that makes sense for the Raiders to get rid of a young, good offensive lineman, has to include one going back. And so, you guys had a nice discussion about Oluwatimi. I think it would make a ton of sense for him to be involved in that deal if you're going to acquire Jackson Powers Johnson from the Raiders. Christian Haynes could be another possibility, but I think Olu would make a lot more sense for them.
So the only reason I would say, and I'm just going to say this, the only reason I don't think Olu makes sense for the Raiders is because for their point and purpose right now, I agree, Olu going back could make sense for any other team in this situation, but the Raiders have exclusively been playing Johnson at guard. Mm-hmm. They view him as a guard. I think it would be Christian Haynes going back the other way if you were going to make a trade there, because you're replacing a guard for a guard in their eyes rather than that guard for a center.
Sure.
And they don't have another guy, I think, on that roster that they view as a guy that can go from center and kick to guard if they needed to put Olu in. Because Olu, as much as I think he could do it in a pinch, I don't know if Olu's a true guard in the NFL.
Also, guys, we have breaking news.
Oh yeah.
This just texted to my phone from the Seahawks. They have designated fullback Robbie Oots for return to practice. He's eligible to come off the practice or to come off the injured reserve. But going into the bye, the last time we heard from Mike McDonald, they weren't entirely sure whether he'd be ready to go, but it sounds like he is, and they've designated him to return.
Fantastic. Let's see if the run game starts cracking now, because it's been a bone of contention on our pod for the last couple of weeks, and it's something that I honestly put down to not having a fullback that can make such a big hole for him to run through. So maybe now, with Oots being back, we might actually get our run game going in the latter half of the season. That could be the difference.
Sorry, apparently I caused a little bit of an uproar in the comments. They all thought it was a trade. They all thought it was a trade.
It was a breaking news. That's what did it. I was on tenterhooks thinking, oh, who'd be traded for?
That's what I thought. When I saw the notification, I thought we had a trade going on.
Because of our time zone, we never get any of the live intel. We always have to. We catch your guys' lives or like the re-records, and we're like, oh, right, we missed all that. Then as we wake up,
and then is it always an hour late?
Okay, right, yeah, all right. I'll hold my hand up. My time zone math is awful, according to Bryce.
I couldn't help it.
Horrible.
It is. I apologize. I really do apologize, everyone. I will get better. I'll get better. I'll get that world clock down that you showed me, and then I can start sorting out the time zones. Is there anyone else or any other positions that you could think of as a
I've got another one that kind of intrigues me, right? Like a lot of fans, and I bring this up because of this fact, a lot of fans have been trying to find ways or reasons to offload Boye Mafe, right? Especially with Derek Hall coming back this week, presuming he's 100% healthy. That edge group looks really good. So if you can get some sort of value back for Mafe, it'd be cool. But what are you going to get back for a guy who hasn't been productive and is in the last year of his deal, right? What about swapping him with another player who's in the exact same position? In 2022, right before the Seahawks were about to take Boye, or right before the position where they ended up taking Boye Mafe, and this was documented and detailed in John Boyle's kind of draft insider piece that he did that year after that draft. They had Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State higher on their board, and they were about to take him. And then the Falcons moved up right in front of the Seahawks and drafted him instead. So they went with Mafe. Ebiketie has been similarly disappointing in Atlanta, just hasn't been productive. Last year of the deal, they've got some other edges there that they've poured resources into the last couple of years. They're finally getting some pass rush there in Atlanta. What if you just swap those two guys? Change of scenery. Maybe they get something out of Ebiketie that they didn't get out of Mafe, and going into the offseason, now he wants to be here, and that's another young edge that you can kind of sign long-term. Just a thought.
I'd love that. A straight swap. Sometimes just a change of scenery is what a player needs, and I would not argue with that. Mitch, you were talking about a lineman that you'd particularly like to trade for. Was a linebacker from the Bucks.
From the Bucks. I've spoken a lot about Nakobe Dean from the Eagles, but that's a player that I think would add a serious amount of juice to this defense. In his absence, they've drafted a lot of linebackers for multiple roles, and he's now back in and getting snaps and flying around. I'd really like Nakobe Dean. I think he plays so hard. He really looks like a Seahawks linebacker, and I think we're just still a bit thin there. I know Drake Thomas is looking really great, but I can't help but feel like that should be a player that comes in on blitz packages and plays as a backup to someone with a little bit more NFL experience, or a bit more physical talent.
I think while we're talking about trades, it's worth noting that ESPN came out with an article today by Matt Bowen and Jeremy Fowler about ranking the top 25 players who they felt could move. And it wasn't all just spitballing. It was based on things they're hearing from around the league. And there are two things of note here. They do not list Jackson Powers Johnson as one of their 25, but they still, regardless of the fact that I think all of us for the last couple of weeks, especially since the Texans game, have said, I think most of us anyway are kind of leaning towards like, let's keep Reek Woolen this year. He can help us win whatever we're capable of winning this year. Let's hang on to him through the end of the season. They still list him number 4 on their list of players, top 25 players they feel like could be on the move. And they do it because they have an anonymous quote from an executive in the league who says they've been wanting to move him for a while. He doesn't fit what Mike McDonald wants to do. So there still is that out there and that possibility that's being reported.
Reek Woolen, JPJ, and a pick. Just putting it out there.
I'm just putting this one up because Kevin has mentioned Kayvon Thibodeau 3 times during the comments. The comments on this pod. We have to if you comment anything 3 times, we will put you on the screen.
There you go.
That is a pledge. That will also drum up a lot of comments for our algorithm. So that is what we're doing now.
See what you're doing there.
Kayvon Thibodeau. For me, Kayvon Thibodeau's not a guy I would take, and I'd say briefly why. At the moment, we're rushing for a lot, and we're rushing for that typically would deserve a double team. They are an absolute handful for teams. They are winning more often than not. They're generating a lot of pressure. Kayvon Thibodeau is not necessarily the kind of guy that is beating his man one-on-one or eating double teams. So I think if you traded for someone like that and paid him, because that is essentially what you're saying here, if you trade for Thibodeau, you're paying him. I think you sign yourself up for another player, a bit like Maffei, that doesn't necessarily fit the rush for sort of jigsaw puzzle. So Thibodeau for me is not the exact fit, but he is a talented boy, and he is athletic, and he'll find a fit in a really good scheme. I don't think it's the way our D line's shaping up. I don't think it fits. Don't know what everyone else.
It's funny though. In this article, they also list. They say their predicted chance of Reek getting traded is 50%. And then they name 4 teams that they think could be good fits and potential trade partners, and they're all 4 NFC teams. The Seahawks are not trading Reek Woolen to another team in the NFC that could potentially be a playoff team. It's not happening.
I have one last name to add to this group, and it may stir up Seahawk fans, but I think it's probably the most realistic addition lineman-wise if we were to get a lineman, and that's Wyatt Teller out of Cleveland. And I know it'll stir a bunch of angst from people because of what happened with Chenna Nwosu, but, I had Corbin on my show. Corbin talked about it. Teller's got a good reputation as a good locker room guy, and I'm pretty sure him and Chenna can bury a hatchet 2 years now almost, or a year after it happened. And if you went to Chenna and went, hey, look, this guy comes in and helps us get closer to a Super Bowl or a deep playoff run, I don't think Chenna's going to sit there, especially on the deal he's on, and go, there's no way you're bringing him in. I won't play with him, because I think Seattle will turn around and be like, okay, bye, Chenna. Like, we'll find someone else to rush the passer. Like, this is where guys get over this stuff really quickly if they just have an honest conversation. Wyatt Teller would help the Seattle Seahawks because he also brings a veteran presence to that O-line. So he's someone I'd be interested in if Seattle was looking to upgrade at one position on the O-line.
My only concern, and we might need to get Curtis Allen in on this one, is his cap hit this year would be pretty nominal. It would be about it looks like about $4 to $5 million, and then prorated by half the season, right? So that's nothing. But then he's got 4 void years tacked onto his deal. His dead money cap hit next year would be almost $30 million. I don't know how much of that. I'm sorry, that would be this year. Next year it would be 19.4. And you actually lose money against the cap. You would lose $9 million and a $19.4 million cap hit. I just don't know with the void years how much of that is acquired by the acquiring team as opposed to left with the trading team. So we'd have to figure that out.
I just want to sort of bookend this part of the pod with the amount of people asking about Max Crosby. I do not think we would go for him. We wouldn't have the cap space. I don't think the Raiders would move. They'd work something out. If that meant getting rid of someone in the back office, Pete, Gino, whoever, to keep their prize player.
Well, in some of the reporting this week, Diana Rossini, Albert Breer, those guys are saying that the Raiders they're not moving.
No, they're not moving him.
No,
it's not happening. Why would you? And with that,
it sounds like the Bengals are also still not willing to move Hendrickson even in the last year of his deal. And now he's hurt. So that complicates matters too.
I pity those 2 players. So we'll round off the trade talks in the pod with our predictions. Now, we've already given what our season predictions are going to be. Now, I'm going to put a little spin on this. Knowing the games that we have left, can you foresee any surprise wins or losses? I know we're all looking at the Rams. We've got the Cardinals again. The 49ers, the last game of the season. Are there any games you think could be sort of like could trip us up?
I think the Colts game, which I don't think anyone had circled at the beginning of the year as a trip up game for Seattle, that game is going to be tougher than I think most people anticipated at the beginning of the season. I also think the Falcons game could be an interesting one for Seattle. That's going to be one that they're going to be, I believe, in Atlanta for, depending on who's playing quarterback. But those are two for me that I've kind of got circled where I go, Colts definitely going to be a tougher opponent, especially with the way Daniel Jones is playing. Jonathan Taylor looks rejuvenated down there, and that Falcons team plays well some weeks and then completely is like Jekyll and Hyde and plays horrible other weeks. I think those two team games for me on the back end of the schedule, outside of the obvious Ram ones, are ones I look at and go, it'll be really interesting to see which Seahawks teams show up that day.
See, I look at that game differently. I've in my rest of the season prediction, I've got that as a loss, and not because I don't think we can match up with the Colts. I think the Colts are legit. They're leading the NFL in point differential by quite a bit. They're really balanced both sides of the ball. I just had to find losses somewhere in the second half. And because of how well the Colts have been playing, I just figured that would be one to pick. The one that I would think, if you're asking about one that maybe unexpectedly might trip them up, I think that Cardinals game 2 weeks from now has all the makings of a trap game. If you're coming off what I expect to be a pretty convincing win on Sunday night against a Commanders team that is nowhere near the team that went to the NFC Championship game last year, and their defense is really struggling, and we don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to play in that game, or if he is, he's going to be coming off a break. Then I think, with the Rams looming the following week, and as much as we've been able to handle the Cardinals, they might look a lot different in 2 weeks. It might be Jacoby Brissett instead of Kyler Murray, or it might be a rejuvenated Kyler Murray if he comes back after sitting for a few weeks. That kind of has sort of the classic makings of a trap game, and one that I'd be a little leery of.
Mitch?
I'm going to be Captain Obvious here, but the Rams games can go either way. We could win both, we could split them, we could lose both. Honestly, I can't call it.
All the possibilities then.
All the possibilities. I mean, I'm not. I mean, you're asking me for a prediction. I'm telling you, I can't call it. But I do. What I do think as a prediction is that will define a lot of our season. Those Rams games, it feels like we're on a collision course with the Rams, and those two games both feature in the second half of our season. So. We can turn the season into a triumph, with good results and performances against the Rams, or we could crash it. So there's quite a lot riding on those games for me.
Yeah, agreed. I've got the first Rams game down as a loss, and then we beat them in the second one. I just think we're going to go in there with the swagger of how we're playing, and I think they're going to get one over on us. But I think that might pull it out of the bag for the last game. So with that. That is our mid-season roundtable pod done. We'll wind it up here, chaps. I want to say a massive thank you.
Can I throw one little tidbit in? Because
yes.
I kind of left everybody hanging a few minutes ago, but I asked ChatGPT what the contract would look like for Wyatt Teller, and got my answer. So I was correct about the cap hit. It would be barely over $3 million for the rest of the year. And then after this year, the 4 void years, those are 100% the responsibility of the original team. The Seahawks would have a clean cap if they cut ties and moved on from Wyatt Teller at the end of this year. So it would literally cost you next to nothing to acquire him, outside of obviously the draft pick compensation that it would take to get him.
So it could be a $3 million rental.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. I mean, before we wind up, guys, I want to say a massive thank you. Let's go round the round table. And everyone sort of say what's coming up, where people can find you. Bryce.
Yeah, so I just released a really cool episode I did with Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks and Emerald City Spectrum, so go check that out. I got 2 interviews coming up, one with Jeff Simmons of Real Hawk Talk and one with Greg Bell of the Tacoma News Tribune. So those will be out. And then Wednesday night live, and I'm sure Dan will mention as well, we have our live Seahawks Syndicate show with Brandon Kane and Mookie Alexander joining us, where we'll kind of do exactly this. We'll have a mid-season roundtable recap and kind of look at the forward into the potential of what this team could do in the back end of the season. So that's kind of what's got going on over on the Hawks side.
Nice. Dan?
Busy week. Yeah, we got the Syndicate on Wednesday. I was going to say something, but I'm going to hold it. I'll tell you guys off air. Because I just don't think I should share it. Stacey Ross is going to join me on Wednesday from Seattle Sports 710. Really looking forward to talking to her for the first time. And then big official relaunch of the Patreon page where everything's going to be under one roof now. Seahawks Forever, Mariners Forever, audio, video, my Substack, everything all rolled into one, including a new Discord where we can all keep the conversation going day in, day out. So that'll be, look for that announcement later this week as well.
Nice. Well, I have both of your pods bookmarked on pretty much every form of media. So as soon as it comes through, whether it's video or audio, I either watch or listen. Don't try and stay up for the lives because I will not function the next day. But for anyone who's new to this, we are the 12 Talk podcast, the UK Seahawks official podcast. We tend to do a game review post game. We'll try and fit in some other bits. You can find us on all forms of social media at 12 Talk Pod. This pod will be clipped up into multiple shorts for you guys to have a look at, and the guys with us as well will be sharing those as well. But this has been fantastic. I absolutely love having you guys on, having everyone in the comments. Thank you so much. By all means, you can like and subscribe to every single one of our channels. Hit the notification bell because that helps with the algorithm too. And don't forget, you can find us on all forms of audio. If you can, get in Dan's Patreon. And make sure you subscribe to Bryce. He's got some fantastic stuff coming up. But there's 4 of us on this, and anyone who is new will not realise that I like to finish on a Go Hawks in unison. We haven't done it yet with 3 people. We haven't done it yet with just me and Mitch. So I want to see how bad this could be with 4. So, gentlemen, are you ready? Dan's actually got whiskey in that cup. He knew this was coming. Right, I'll count us down from 3. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined in live, left your comments. I said like and subscribe. But from me, from Mitch, from Bryce, from Dan, I'm going to say on 3, gentlemen. 1, 2, 3. Go
Hawks.